Hello, in this video we're going to discuss the discovery of cooked meat and the problem with Moses with this history. In particular, it's in regard to Moses' laws which affect the Jewish people. So from heaven's perspective, what we'll do is we'll talk about the first history and the impact of cooked meat, in particular pork. And then we'll discuss what actually happened during the Exodus so that people can get an idea as to why things are the way they are with the Bible. And then later we'll do later videos which show a couple of places where there's a monument dedicated to the discovery of something regarding food. In the first history, in heaven, everyone survived off two types of food. There was manna, which is a type of small biscuit made from wormhole particles that are bonded together, and this is technically food for the soul. There's also barley, which was made into barley biscuits, and it was just beaten and rolled barley mixed with water and or breast milk and then dried out, making a biscuit. So angels and God survived off this for 400 billion years. For 400 billion years they survived off this. So when the angels were created, which was 450 billion years ago, they had to survive off manna only and water from troughs. And so they were always still hungry. So when humankind was brought to earth, it was due to overpopulation in the first history. So God had created just one planet which actually worked to the point where they could live outside. So as discussed in an earlier video, the planet Heaven. There were several planets prior to this planet, but the planet Heaven, which is a cold environment like Ireland during winter. There's snow and ice, and everyone lived in caves. The population expanded on that planet. This is long after Satan had been thrown out. So Satan had been thrown out along with his followers into the storage dimension, which is a planet that has air, gravity and atmosphere, but no star. It is a very cold environment. There's nothing to eat or drink, and Satan and his followers were stuck there in soul form. When the population of heaven grew too big, God by then had started experimenting and created a universe, a dimension with stars and planets. And in particular there was a planet that God loved, and that is planet Earth. In the first history it was referred to as planet 1. It was later discovered that planet 1 was in fact the third planet in that system, the solar system, but everyone refused to let the name be changed to planet 3. So in this history, Earth is that planet. In the first history, it was known as planet 1. In the first history, planet 1 was a place where God did experiments regarding life. So we have a planet with a star and a moon we have a weather system that isn't as cold as Ireland, that isn't as cold as heaven. So it's a warmer environment, and God made copies of creatures from earlier, when God had made attempts to create a family out of chambers from a wormhole element. So in God's experiments, God had tried to create life in a similar process of creation as to how God was created, in order to make more like himself, so he had people to hang out with. So the earlier works were smaller creatures. Some of the creatures that God created in that time included a giant squid and chimpanzee and many other creatures. But those creatures couldn't go to heaven because there was no place for them, and they terrified God. He thought of them as monsters, some of them. This included flies the size of dinner plates. Remember, it's a zero gravity environment where these experiments occurred before planet Heaven was created. So on the planet 1 was placed vegetation and animals, and in the sea creatures were placed by the sea to see what they would do. The giant squid was introduced to another planet and was placed on a beach. God wasn't sure what it was going to do. It searched the water and then went in there and lived, and they've been in the sea ever since. Other creatures that were placed by the sea went into the land and lived there. There were trees, they lived among the trees. Some species survived, others died out. So on planet 1, God introduced vegetation and animals. With planet Heaven overcrowded, God introduced them, took them to planet 1. So it was there's 50,000 people. Where the word human comes from is it was the first word a woman said after she'd been created. So a woman had been created, and she stepped out of the chamber and she said human. And so that's where we get humankind from. That type of person is human, that kind. And so God named the entire batch human. And 50,000 of them, with a group of angels, were sent through a wormhole to planet 1, to Belize. Now events occurred in Belize. All the angels died and the batches of humankind died because of Satan. Right, so it's the first history. Later, an angel went to planet 1 to explore, and he would go there naked. He'd leave his robes in heaven, otherwise he might lose them. He needed his robes in heaven because it's a colder environment. On planet 1 was a warmer environment in Belize. So he decided to leave his robes in heaven and walk around naked in Belize. Starving and naked, this angel came across a forest fire that had been caused by lightning. And upon finding a dead rabbit, the angel, who's a man, picked up the dead rabbit and ate it, and found cooked meat inside and was impressed by it. So this man continued to hunt. He found ways to kill animals using rocks and sticks, and he found a way to make a fire using flint. So he was playing one day by a river, found two stones, clicked them together, made a spark. And this led him to discovering a way to make fire. Later, that same man came across a pig and killed it. He cooked it and ate it and found that the meat was delicious. So, as an angel, how he would get from planet 1 to heaven was there was a fixed point wormhole. So God had created a wormhole that went from the cave where God and Mary live right down to planet 1. It was in a special chamber and it was always on. The wormhole exit point on planet 1 was suspended in the air so that Satan and his followers could not get to it if they should ever come across it. But it was near a tree so that the angel who was there could climb the tree and jump off a branch and return to heaven. So this man hunted some pigs and he caught a family of pigs, 2 adults and 4 piglets. And he tossed them through the wormhole to heaven, which wound up directly inside God and Mary's house, God and Mary's cave. He threw some wood in there and then jumped through himself and found mayhem. The piglets and the pigs were getting into everything, scaring everyone. No one in heaven had ever seen a pig up close before and were absolutely terrified by them. God knew that he had created them. He just didn't know how on earth something like that could get into his cave in another planet in another dimension. So upon seeing the angel who did it, God was quite angry, and what the angel did was he took the 2 adult pigs and got all the angels together, including God and Mary and Jesus, and violently killed the 2 adult pigs in front of everyone. Everyone was appalled by it. And he then cooked the pig and got them all to try a piece, and they absolutely loved it. So that is how cooked meat was discovered, and this led to cooked food. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.